Hi everyone, Dr. Tran here from Color Chiropractic in Bellingham, Washington. I am excited to bring another interview from one of our referral partners this month to you. Our goal is to really help you to, get a better feel of the different healers here in our town. In Bellingham, Lynden, different areas there. And our goal is really to help hook people up with good people. And the person I have online with us today is Mary Burgess. Just to give you an intro, she's a licensed midwife since 2015, and before that, she was actually a doula and a birth educator since 2002. So she's the director of Moonbelly Midwifery out in Lynden, and she works with more of the low risk moms as well as the babies as well too. So welcome, Mary. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Tran. Nice
Yeah,
to be here.
yeah. Thanks for coming on. So tell us a little bit about yourself, particularly, what inspired you to become a midwife.
Sure. Um, well, that is the question for most midwives that they love to come back to again and again. I mean, something got them so inspired by this work. Often it's their own births, but sometimes not. In my case, it was my own births as well. I have two daughters who are about 21 and 24.
Mm.
And when the first one was born, I thought, wow, and if I did that, I could do anything. I never had felt. I knew I was strong, but I had never felt so strong, and so like I did that, and and then at the birth of my second daughter, she was born in the hospital, actually, I didn't know about midwives when my kids were born. So, so they were both born in the hospital with Dr.
Okay.
Nancy Hart, who's still a good friend.
Mm.
And when Nancy came in for my second daughter's birth, she came in with all of her garb on, like face thing and all the stuff. And that was not what did it, but it was what she did. And it only took one moment of her time. And it was as she came into the room, she kind of touched my knee and she said, "Well, I'll just be over here if you need me."
Wow.
And the room was dark, pretty dark, and she went and sat behind me in an even darker corner in a rocking chair, and that she just in that moment she gave all the power to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time. And but it wasn't like, here I am, da-da, to rescue you and to save your, to deliver your baby. She was like, you got this.
Wow.
I know you've got this.
Yeah.
And I'll just be over here if you need me. And it was that one moment that actually inspired me to become a midwife. That
Wow.
gave me so much empowerment in that moment. And I had a great birth a few minutes later. And she was right. I did know how to do this, and I could do it, and I was strong enough. And anyway, I wanted every mother I could ever meet to hopefully have that same feeling of like, wow, I did this. This took all of me. It was the hardest thing I've done, and I did it, So anyway, those feelings last the rest of a woman's life. But
Wow.
but once you see that, once you experience that, there's just a whole nother level of confidence that you gain in this life. And quite frankly, I think it's needed for parenthood.
For
Yeah,
sure.
it's really good to start out feeling on top of the world.
Let me ask you this: when people go to you, what is the experience of what is an experience like when they come in to see a midwife? Can you describe the experience, that you go through?
Sure. Well, it's kind of like this. It has some time associated with it. It's conversational. It's just me. There's not me and 5 or 15 other providers that they see somebody different each time who never knows them. They don't have time to know them. They're very busy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a solo practitioner, licensed midwife, so it's just me. And
Mm-hmm.
our appointments tend to be longer. They're anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, so we have lots of time to get to know each other and to have conversations, to pick up where we left off last time, and to see how things are going, whether it's something emotional that's going on in her life. Maybe it's nutrition that she's been working on, building her iron. Maybe she's got sore places. Like, oh, have you seen Dr. Tran? Did he take care of that thing that's going on with your sciatic? Like, what does this woman need? It's very individualized. It's really catered towards her.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that it's all about her. And I let her know that from the first time I meet her. Part of midwifery is something called a shared decision making or informed consent. So each time we meet, even if they don't, especially first time moms, they sometimes don't know the questions to ask, and they'll be the ones to say that, like, I don't even know what to ask. And I'm saying, well, that's okay, because I've got 10 things that we're gonna, maybe talk about today, and I'll help generate questions.
Yeah. Because they hadn't thought about that process, right?
Yeah, they've never heard of group beta strep testing or glucose testing, like anemia in pregnancy. I mean, all the things. There's a plethora of birth nerd words that are thrown around. Like,
yeah, I mean, and the thing is that I guess I'm kind of teeter-tottering back with my own, my wife's process too. Some of these tests aren't necessarily like required; they're more like optional types of things.
Absolutely. Everything is optional. Every single thing. It's all about how she and they want to do this. It's her body. It's her baby. So I'll lay a bunch of stuff out, and I'll say, well, next time, here's some things that are offered. Maybe we're going to recheck your iron, which I highly recommend. Or maybe we're going to check her glucose, which maybe not. Just depends on her and her diet and her past pregnancies and any history or how she eats, whatever, or her preference. And then I always send them home with pieces of paper that are, informational, that they can read together, they can Google, they can ask friends, they can take to their other care providers and say, hey, what would you do if this was you? And do you have anything else that I should add to this? And at the end, there's always a place for them to sign that they've read it, that they understand it, that they've had their questions answered fully, and then their choices about it. Are they going to do a dating ultrasound? Are they going to do or not? And are they going to do the group beta strep testing? And if so, what are they going to, are they going to accept antibiotics in labor, or not? It's her body. I'm a strong believer that this is all about her.
What's also interesting as you're speaking, I can kind of see this dichotomy of different things in that process, because you and I talked about the idea of unassisted birth, versus, what you're providing there. And then there's kind of the medicalized birth. And it's almost like not only are those situations a little bit different, and I'd like you to speak about that, but in that also comes different choices that you're making or taking away, right?
Correct.
Can you speak to that at all?
So, starting with unassisted, I am not a fan of unassisted birth. I think even the midwives I know who've had babies have a midwife. They have someone there. It's a pretty groovy thing to do right now. There's a lot of talk about it online and how great it is, and maybe it is great if everything goes great. But at the end of the day, if there's anything that comes up, there's nobody around with hands that know what to do.
Yeah.
And then the burden of the incident is fully, squarely on the parent and the mother in particular. And that's a very heavy burden to bear. On the other end, you have a medical birth, and I'm never going to be the one to plant a bad seed about our medical community, because they do a fabulous job. Yeah. I work really hard building great bridges with them, because if we're ever going, I want the mom to be like, okay, we're going to go do that now. And I need her to be coping and on board with that. And, they're delivering in a hospital setting. There's lots of different providers, lots of different nurses. You may or may not know the person that you have who comes to do the delivery or the birth. And it's definitely more managed. If you look out of the lens of if you ask a surgeon their opinion, they're often going to say, well, let's do surgery. That's what they do. They're highly trained specialists that you want to have around in case of big things, in case a cesarean is needed, or very higher level things are coming up. You want them, and hopefully, in the design, you have them saved for those things. And really, they're only seeing a small amount of people across the world. Most women are seeing midwives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have midwives who their lens is, this is a normal, extraordinary event in a woman's life. Mm-hmm. It benefits from having someone who knows you, who's familiar with you, that you're comfortable with, who you can ask anything to, that you can cry in front of, that you can be yourself with her. To answer questions, she's got to be skilled. The job is not skillless by any means. It's gosh, we're so practiced, and because, as you mentioned before, Dr. Tran, my scope of practice by licensure of the state is healthy, normal, low risk women.
Yeah.
And that's not a tiny box. It's a good number of variations go on in there. But healthy, normal, low risk is what I see every day, every clinic day, every birth. And so for me, it's very easy to see when it's going on the outside of normal, because all I see is normal. And so you usually see it coming from a ways away. And when it's moving in that direction, well, you've built up that trust over 9 months for them to have those conversations of like, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I think we should do.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
I was going to ask this other question, but I think even in thinking, I might even want to have some different people from the birthing community where we could do kind of a roundtable together about how we support that whole birthing process. That'd be fun.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There's a whole program called Smooth Transitions, which all the licensed midwives and the hospital providers, specifically OB hospitalists, people who are stationed in the hospital, the nurses, nursing staff, even sometimes our EMS providers who play a very critical role in all of that. Wow. Roundtable discussion. Yeah, it's called Smooth Transitions, and it's all about making those, if a woman is transferring from a out of hospital, either home or birth center, birth experience to the hospital for any reason.
Yeah.
It's, we want her treated really, really well. We want her baby treated well. The receiving provider does not want to receive a train wreck. They want to be treated well.
Yeah.
Part of that is honoring, you transfer early, you transfer appropriately, and I also want to be treated well. So it's all about opening up that communication. So we meet probably 4 times a year and talk about things that went well, things that didn't. How can we improve? It's very, very open discussion. It's been super amazing for our community.
Yeah. How, in the end, what is the best way for people to get to know you as a midwife? They might be expecting, or, are there different resources even that you'd like to make us aware of?
Sure. There's, if a woman is interested in a midwife, some people don't even know that midwives exist. So they're like, that still exists? There's, a good place to start is Midwives of Washington State, or MAWS, MAWS. They talk about the scope of a midwife, what midwives in Washington State do and don't do. And in particular, by our licensure, we don't do VBAC, twins, or multiples and breech deliveries. If we know those are not within our scope. So if you have a midwife who's saying she's a licensed midwife, there's one in particular who serves Bellingham. She doesn't live around here, but she'll do it, and I think they're very, very dangerous. So not all midwives are the same either. Some practice within their scope and some don't. But anyway, so you could start on the MAWS website to find out what does a licensed midwife in the state do. There's lots of resources. Each of us have websites. Mine at either Moonbelly Midwifery or the Lynden Birth Center. Both have websites. You can see photos of where I work. There's also Bellingham Birth Center. There's also Birthroot Midwifery Center, and both in Bellingham. Everybody's got websites, and then call around, read their bios, call around, make consults with midwives. See, you can meet with all of them and see. We all have the same job but different flavor. Like we're kind of just different personalities, different places of work. all that stuff. So then just make a consult. It's free. You can go and sit with her for a little bit, half hour or whatever, and ask your questions and see if it feels like a good fit. And if it does, then jump into care.
So, Mary, I appreciate you so much. We've worked over the years just with
Yeah, I
a couple
appreciate
of
you
different
too. I
people.
appreciate sending clients to you
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Well, this is Richard Tran from Color Chiropractic interviewing Mary Burgess from Moonbelly Midwifery. So, if you like this post, please comment on it and give us a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel if you want to check out more information on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.